role on brand safety is, well, I'll say everything we do is about brand safety, right? We are focused on the criminal aspects of, keeping your brand safe, avoiding the criminal aspects in order to keep your brand safe. But there isn't anything in our bailiwick that isn't about brand safety. So we have 5 different programs at TAG. The first is a verification program. We don't work with any companies that we can't have pass our background check. So that we know that when you look at the TAG registry of known companies, these are companies that are the real Disney or the real Procter or the real Group M, so that you can be sure that you aren't working with a criminal spoofing a legitimate brand or pretending to be a legitimate supplier in this supply chain. That verification, the Verified by TAG program, is the foundation under which all of our certification programs are built. So until you are verified by TAG, we will not work with you on certifying any of your business practices. But once you are, we work with you in 4 different areas. So TAG has certification programs on fraud, piracy, and malware. We have an additional one called the Inventory Quality Guidelines Certification, which is a transparency program to make sure that we have transparency in how we're categorizing both inventory and creative so that there's much better clarity between the buy and sell side about what is actually being transacted. Part of our philosophy at TAG is we've gotten ourselves into these situations as an industry with this unfortunate criminal activity occurring in the legitimate supply chain because things have gotten so complicated, because there's been a lack of transparency. And so TAG's 4th, and I would say somewhat most important part of our mission, the 4th pillar, is increasing business transparency. And that's the one that probably evolves the most over time as new challenges come into our minds as an industry, particularly when it comes to new brand safety challenges. So the way that we work at TAG is really a multi-layered and multidisciplinary approach. So our certifications aren't just for vendors or intermediaries or publishers or advertisers. They're for everybody. The problems that we're trying to solve, I would say generally when it comes to brand safety, but particularly in TAG's bailiwick, cannot be solved without engagement, very strong engagement from every single part of that supply chain. So when we design a certification, we do it in a way that has roles to play for every part, from advertiser and agency and intermediary and publisher and all of those vendors that might be related across the supply chain. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody has the same role to play, of course. So all of these different requirements that you see here apply to those different kinds of business models in different ways. So what makes this certification so powerful, what makes the program so powerful, is that you've got so many different kinds of checks all across the transaction, such that when the transaction finishes, it hasn't just been checked once for fraud or filtered once for fraud. There's been preventative actions like ads.text, the publisher communicating in the first place. This is where you can buy my inventory in a legitimate way, and if you aren't following that ads.text file, you're probably buying fraudulent content. And then moving down the supply chain, requiring publishers to disclose if they're buying traffic, right? Because we know that there are higher levels of fraud if you're sourcing your traffic in a paid way. And then down into the intermediary space, making sure that at every step in the supply chain, fraud is measured and filtered for particular kinds of threats. And then all the way down again, making sure that you've got this chain of custody through our payment ID system, such that if some fraud does occur, you actually have a possibility of going back and finding where it happened, and not simply having this frustrating conversation between the buy and sell side about how to have a remediation, how to have a clawback.